Hey, Jonathan.
Hello, hello. How you doing, Syya?
I'm doing great. Hey, you know what's really funny is that I was putting together some signage, if you will, to keep promoting, all of our GLO guests. So, what do you think of this feature I put on here for you? Do you look handsome or what?
Oh, I love it. I love it. I definitely appreciate it. You're making me look really spiffy. I never wear suits like that anymore, it seems, but I gotta do it at least once for the picture, for the cam.
Exactly. Like, who wears suits anymore? But that's okay. So, hey, but you know what though? It doesn't matter what you wear because you'll always have an afterglow. Are you ready to start this
Yeah.
podcast, sir?
Let's get after it. Let's do this.
It gets cornier and cornier every time I try to do these intros. All right, my friend, let's kick off the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening and all that good stuff and happy Friday, everyone. It is the Afterglow Live Recap Podcast. My name is Syya Yasotornrat. Say that 55 times. Wait, say it 50 times. Anyway, say it any way you want. I'm being intrigued to see how it's pronounced. Welcome back, Mr. Jonathan Anderson, the founder of the In Group International and also a fellow podcaster of the Noonish podcast.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me back on the show. Love it. I missed you guys.
I know. It's so funny. Like, I know I need to highlight a little bit more diversity as far as like different GLO members, but I just love my Dallas crew. And so I'm selfish. I'm just going to keep pushing my Dallas crew as much as possible. So thanks for coming back, Jonathan.
I definitely appreciate it. We got to get you back on Noonish sometimes too, man. That was a great show.
Oh, I had way too much fun. I had way too much fun. I mean, anytime that I'm allowed to have some grape juice, it makes me happy. So thank you for allowing me to have that. Hey, Jonas, thank you for joining us. It's mostly baseball jerseys now. That's hilarious. I know. I'm usually in concert t-shirts. So anyway, I am wanting to kick things off here. So for those that like are new to the Afterglow or starting to check things out here, we do a recap of the weekly Global Leaders Organization Speaker Business Acceleration 2.0 series. We had Curt Steinhorst sit down with us and talk us about focusing your team and getting the important work done.
Yes. Very important. Very important. Great show yesterday.
It was, can I just tell you, I had such a hard time focusing and I realized how bad I was because when we are as GLO members, we get to get on the Zoom link itself so we can have our chat like privately, right? And I'm sitting there chatting away and listening and taking notes and I realized I wasn't focused.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That sounds like me in school my entire life growing up. So
right. And when you think you're like getting it right, you think you're doing it well, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe not. Maybe I'm not giving all that I could be for the guests. So I took a ton of notes. So I hope you're okay if we can just like kind of chat it off a little bit on, was there any one specific bullet point that just jumped out at you, Jonathan, that you're like, boom, that's it?
Well, the 4 focus factors, the clarity, the capacity, curiosity, and community, that really that stuck with me, right? That jumped out at me. He had a lot of great points, but just really breaking those down and just within those 4, the capacity and the curiosity, right? Because it's very true. People are much more focused when it's something that they're interested in, right?
Right.
For instance, I have a buddy that works at GM and he thrives in that environment. The kids, he's loved cars his entire life. So, he's moved up from the assembly line to now he's on this special ops like Cadillac team because his attention to detail is like insanely high. And for me, I would be one of the people just showing up, going to work, right? It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but his focus in that space is just tremendous and it shows. And it's, he's moving up the ladder at a much quicker rate than the typical individual in the environment. So that's just
you just nailed something that's very, very real for me right now. I royally screwed up and I'm documenting it on live and it's going to be forever on YouTubes of the world. But I lacked focus couple days ago, trying to clean up my desktop, because everyone's seen it and laughed at me. So I was like, oh, I got to clean it. I deleted a project I was working on with a client.
Oh my gosh.
I thought I backed it up. I thought I saved it, to the cloud, which I always do after a recording. I always go to the cloud and freaking save that thing put it. Should my desktop or my laptop, eat it. Right.
Yes.
And I don't know what happened. And I don't want to say the person's name, and he's probably watching and he's probably yelling at me right now. But yeah, no, I deleted a project. I had to just humbly come back and apologize. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I killed someone's time, right?
Feels like the end of the world as we know it when that type of stuff happens, like heart rate goes up, you're just freaking out. It feels like the worst day ever, like things are just gonna stop. But just gotta battle through it, man, and hopefully y'all can get back together and knock out a better session than before. So it's hard to reproduce that initial.
It is. I know. I'm so cringing.
Show.
Well, I think this new re-record, and I know he's listening, so I love you. I won't say your name, but no, I do think though is this. I lacked focus. I was multitasking, obviously, as an entrepreneur, running our own business and doing a bunch of different stuff. I thought I was doing the right thing, and I completely fracking just dropped the ball. So let's talk about those 4, focus points that Curt had talked about. So you said curiosity was your that resonated the most with you. Why curiosity, Jonathan?
Well, I mean, just for the simple fact that if you're interested in something, you're absolutely going to pay attention to it, right? Baseball. I love baseball. Everybody knows I love baseball, right? When I go to a Rangers game, I am sitting here, my lady she doesn't even like going with me because I'm like, it's a 1-1 count. I think he's going to throw a slider on the outside corner in the dirt right here, and I'm like breaking down the actual game, and she's just soaking up the environment, wanting to go get a hot dog, and she doesn't really care too much, about what's going on the field. But I'm like, please don't talk to me right now. Do you see the situation? Like it's intense. How do you not realize this? So
well, that's the thing about baseball, like because you are passionate, obviously, as a player. I mean, you obviously dedicate so much of your time to it. So is it, when you say the curiosity, it's mental stimulation is what he was saying. How did you arrive at that? Was that something that you always had in you, or did you develop that love for baseball?
It's
strange. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. I was drafted before I started watching baseball games, which is weird.
Wait.
Yes, so I was drafted. I watched ball, but just as a typical fan, like I'd go to the ballpark in Arlington, the old one, and by the second inning, me and my buddies are walking around the park. Right, I wasn't locked in, but when I got to college and I started playing at higher levels, and I realized that these pitchers throw balls on purpose, and I started paying attention to the approaches of the batters and just attention to detail. That's when I really started watching baseball games because I became a student of the game at that point. Prior to that, it was talent, and I just loved to do it. But once I really locked in, that's when I really became a much better ball player. Right, when those two sides joined, and that's talent and skill are two different things, and typically you gain your skill once you have that study. Right, once you put the time in and put the work in, you have a skill, and your talent then starts to it starts to show versus the other people without the talent. Right, so
I'm wondering if, like, to some degree, like, okay, having natural talent is one thing, but then keeping that curiosity, keeping that mental stimulation, because as you go up in levels, the focus and discipline has got to increase. I mean, it has to be. So was that something you intuitively just kind of got into because you were so excited for it? Or do you think it was, you had to consciously sit down and say, okay, Jonathan, or should I call you Jay? I'm going to focus on my swings today, or whatever have you, or I'm going to work out, or I'm going to run an extra mile because of I want to improve whatever.
Well, I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? And just like now in the business world, like having a mentor is everything, and having someone that's been there and done that is everything. So, by the time I was 20, I'm reading books about the game, right? That I had, someone came along and told me, look, this is what I did, right? Professional ball players, this is how I played in the game. This is how I stayed in the game for such a long time. I needed to read these books. There were certain processes and, charts that I'd never even imagined ball players were using, right?
Right.
Charts and graphs showing that, okay, when I was hitting very well in January, these are the things that I was doing. So now that I'm in a slump in March, right, or whatever it might be, I can now go back to January and look at the things that I was doing to be successful, right? And just adding so many different tools that like I said, I just like to play prior to that.
Right.
So having someone come along and show me these things absolutely, helped me. It's not something that just came naturally, right? That was taught, right? So
Yeah. Still tough.
absolutely.
As I can
So
as I can just attest to today.
yes.
So Jonas is cracking me up here. He's like, I'm over here multitasking now. Good job, Jonas. but literally though, it's like what he was talking about. So when you were saying having that mentor, a lot of times that helps create that clarity that you need to know what we're supposed to do, right?
Yes.
To know that we are going to go from point A to point B, and sometimes there's even a point A.1, A.2 to get to point B. I mean, even those minuscule little things.
Yes. Yes.
Do you think, as business leaders, we both have our own businesses, that we are clear? Do you think we're very clear on our mission of what we're doing with our business and articulating that with our teams?
I think that's a challenge for a lot of businesses, right? I've worked with companies that claim to be one thing, but their practices and everything else about the company screams something else, right? So, I think it varies. I think that's a relative question, right? I feel that some organizations are a lot more mature and understand exactly what they're great at, like Bluebell, they're ice cream, right? We know they're ice cream, right? But, there's a lot, in Group International, there's so many various pieces and parts of it, I still find difficulty in explaining when someone's like, what do you guys do? It's like, all right, I don't want to sound like a generalist, but, so I've broken it down. We're contracting, right? Innovative technology and contracting is our focus, right? So, I'm not clear yet. I'm still figuring that out, but
I think,
like I said, that's a challenge with a lot of organizations, especially young organizations.
And I think it's fair to say it will evolve over time. Give yourself grace to know that it will evolve. Your business will pivot and maybe pivot like 1,000 times before you realize what your flow is, or what your niche is, or where your expertise is, or where your comfort level is, to have sustainable growth. Right. So,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
if we know this, then, and by the way, hi, Rashmi. I'm sorry I missed you a little bit earlier. Communication.
Yes.
I can't tell you how interesting it is, the word communication, and how we define it, and how some people are better at it than others. I can tell you right now, I don't like the tough conversations. I don't like having to say to someone, this isn't working out. Like you could jokingly say, hey, can we tweak something? But like where your heart and soul is of that, importance. I think that's my biggest problem. And I try to work through it every day. But I also feel like sometimes, is it fear of rejection? Or I don't want to focus on that emotion.
Yeah. So like, a great saying in relationships that I'd love to go by is commitment keeps you together, but communication brings life, right? If you can communicate and learn to communicate with whoever in whatever situation, and also a lot of people don't agree with this, but conflict brings resolution, right? Like in order to make and get past whatever problem that you're looking to solve, you have to bring it to the table. There are a lot of assumptions made all the time. Like it's like having a conversation through text message, right? One person can mean something completely different than what the other person's receiving, right? Communication is what's heard and not what is said. So, first of all, understanding your audience, understanding how they communicate, right, is a major factor, right? And then, making sure that the message is received that you're intending to send out, right? Because, man, there's so many times when, I'm guilty of this. I can be saying the exact same thing as the person sitting across from me, but we're saying it two different ways.
Yes.
Right? And this conversation could have been squashed a long time ago, but I feel that communication is a major factor in any organization.
And it's funny that it's almost like also the perception of where that communication is coming from. If it's top down, bottoms up. And we're talking in the VIP section a little bit about that. So let me go ahead and welcome Erin. She's joining us a little bit late here. So let me pull Erin in. Hey, Erin.
Hola. Sorry, getting client set up.
No,
Good
no
morning,
worries at
Erin.
all.
Good morning.
So this is the life of entrepreneurs. Erin's working with a client in the studio right now. So hey, I'd rather have her focus on the client and avoid my missteps. We won't talk about that. So Erin, we were just talking about the four what was the terms he used it? The 4 C's
The 4 focus factors.
4 focus factors. So we went through clarity, communication, and curiosity. And the last one that we haven't touched on is community. The attention is, I put on my notes, attention is social. What am I talking about, people?
Attention is social.
It meant so much to me at the time.
Yeah, I believe that it goes back to, whatever people are interested in, they will give their full attention, right? I think that's what he was speaking on when he mentioned that. I could be wrong.
Oh, yes, because when you are engaged and you're focused and you're here and you communicate well, what the next thing is you broaden it out and the community itself will expand upon that focus and be and that, I think, interaction. I think he's talking about the interaction component of it. I'm gonna go with that. Wow.
Yes.
I
Absolutely.
Yeah, but so that was something that when Michelle would talk about, she said, "Hey, that was like more on the leadership company level." But what about you as an individual, right? And one thing that just really stood out to me was a capacity, and that is giving yourself the space to be able to focus, to create. When he said it, make a vault.
Yes.
And I had a visual. I'm a visual person, so I had that idea of a vault to sequester myself, if that makes sense.
Yes, and that's I think he was speaking about the open door policy, right? With these CEOs or the boss, right, of the organizations, and how it's become a problem because they have taken away and stripped away their ability to focus, right? And he said that if you don't have the doors, wear the headphones, right? You have to give yourself and make it clear to everyone that when you have these headphones on, this is my time to focus. This is my space to focus right now. Don't bother me, right? And setting those parameters, right? Not in a jerkish way, but just so that everyone knows, look, I have to do my job too. And when my door is closed or when my headphones are on, I am locked in for these, couple hours. But you've got me any other time, but I need this. In order for us to be successful as an organization, I have to be able to do my job and focus.
And I think that's so important. When he said, that open door policy is the worst policy ever created in the time of corporate engagement, if you will. And and the way he laughed and said it, at first I was like, but we want our leaders to be accessible. But I fully understand and embrace the fact that he said, no, there are times if you want to be a good leader, you have to put those parameters in place saying, no, this is my time that I need for myself in order to be an effective leader.
Yes, absolutely.
And on top of that, though, this also goes on the personal side of things. You have children. When you need to be able to dedicate to your kids, right? Like I've seen this with my sister, and I'm going to make fun of her because she has 10,000 kids, but she's strapped and pulled in multiple directions because each kid has their own individual needs. And I've seen it at times where she's just like so frazzled that she's only giving like 20% of her time to her kid when they're asking her a question. And she's still typing away on something or doing something, right? Or, I've teased her before. I've caught her playing a mobile game. And I'm like, dude, actually, it's a family picture. There's a picture of my nephew bent over the toilet vomiting, and she's playing the game. She's sitting next to him, but she's playing a game. I took a picture of her playing the game. But I realized, at first in that moment, I'm like, mother of the year. But but thinking after, Curt's talk yesterday, I realized, you know what? That was probably her 3 minutes of time that she had to be by herself watching her kid vomit. You know what I mean?
For sure. For sure.
And that's context.
So I know that, initially when I first started playing ball, I jumped into the financial services industry, right? And they taught us, time management was one of the main subjects that we had to learn, right? And you have to, you've got your blocks of time for meetings for everyone else. They said carve out your space for your own personal meetings and don't let anybody interrupt that time. And that's family time. That's meeting time as well, right? And if someone, gives you a shout or shoots you an email, I'm in a meeting right now, right? And you have to stick to those guns. You can't let anyone disrupt that. And that's the only way to really recharge your system. And I still stick to that as much as I can. It's a little, oh man, it gets tough when you jump out here as an entrepreneur, right? You don't really have those business hours set, right? And you want to be available, but you have to be present for your family, right? Especially if you have kids. And another point that he made was just little short bursts of time with the kids, right? Just last night, I was had a long day. I'm coaching baseball. I went to some networking events and came home, and I had to do my work. But I have a 2-year-old son, and he loves his dad, right? And I love my son. So, around about 8:00 last night, I broke away from what I was doing and went and read 3 books to my son, right? Put him in my lap, and I love those moments, right? And nothing comes before my son. And I knew that my lady needed a break, right? Because he's in those terrible twos right now. So, just it's priorities, and you can't forget about, the reason that you're doing what you're doing and your why. So, I think that those just little bursts of time with kids and family, that they do matter, and they're very important.
Absolutely. It kind of reminds me of you're a little bit younger than me here, Jonathan. So I don't know if you know the song, but it's called "Cats in the Cradle" by Harry Chapin.
Whew, no, that's by me.
Oh my gosh! So
I gotta hear it though.
Oh, it's awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to play it here, but just "Cats in the Cradle" by Harry Chapin, and the words are stinging. It's like it's a stinging song, but it kind of reminded me of the fact that, you have to make time for your family. You have to make time for your spouse. You have to make time for yourself. Erin, I see you. You're like the queen multitasker of all things. How do you get your focus? Because you foster dogs. I mean, how do you do it?
No one says I did it well, so I really can't give advice on it, to be honest with you. So yeah, there's a lot going on at our house.
Yes.
Right. And then that's the whole thing is like, the point of that song of "Cats in the Cradle" was, it's in the very beginning of the song, it's sung from the perspective of the son, and he's watching his father, and sees his father super busy, hyper focused on his career, but not on his son. Right. Yes. And then it fast forwards to, then it switches from the perspective of the father singing to, looking at his son, and the son is now focused away from his, dad, and focused on his own life and his own kids and his own family. And so it's just it's a very, if you read as a dad, I think you're going to love it, Jonathan. Like it's one of those like tearjerker songs. So,
yeah, very pop culture-y song. A lot of history in that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of pop culture references to that one.
And it's just odd, man. As the older I get, more things are starting to be tearjerkers, and I don't know if I like it, man. I don't know if I like it.
Well, you put it in perspective, and I think what's hard too, though, is you lose focus. For me, my kids want a lot of stuff too, and they want to go on the trips and they want to do all this stuff, but they have to realize it's a give or take. It's a tough thing, and it's like, well, do you want me around more? Or you want to go? What do you want here? Because you can't have both, right? So it's an interesting balance and trade-off you try to figure out as a business owner and a parent.
Yes.
And in any relationship, to be honest, like a partner, whatever. It's difficult to figure out what that priority should be.
Yeah, it's a struggle. It is an absolute struggle. I haven't conquered that beast yet, but I try. And I try my best, but
I don't know if it's conquerable, to be honest with you, Jonathan. I think it's forever a balance. I really do. I don't think it's something you're like, I have it figured out, because I feel like, especially as a parent, every age, just when you think you might have conquered it and you've got it figured out, it's something new, it's something else. And it's difficult.
And that's been a question. That's been a question of mine to so many people in the different GLO sessions, like time management. Like I'm looking for tips, because that is, it's important to me, right? It all matters, and it's important to everyone that has a family. So I know it helps me. It makes me feel much better to hear that everybody, or not everyone, but a lot of people have the same struggles that I have with it, and it's more difficult than it seems.
I think it's a human struggle, right? I think it's something where it doesn't matter what you do for a living, where you are in society, you know, I think we all have the same similar struggles of time, right? Time is limited, and how do we go about it? So one thing I thought he made an interesting point was he creates rituals and rhythms. So yes, he said you don't always have to be available, but he also, in order for him to refocus himself, he said he has little quote stations in his office, in his room, that he can literally in one section stand and another section sit, or he has an adjustable table to, you know, adjust accordingly. And then he said, I have a little section here where I can sit down and just journal and write. And and it was getting him away from the laptop or the, you know, the big desktop, you know, monitor and all that stuff. Do you think that's something that could help you?
For sure. I mean, I do things like that myself. You know, that's point of view perspective. I mean, it's just a change of, it's the same scene, but it's a bit of a different angle, right? And you just, you know, when I'm in the kitchen at the table trying to do something real quick, I'm completely different mindset than when I'm in my office, right? Or if I'm in the backyard or something. Like I just go on runs and look in the sky and just imagine someone in Japan looking at the same sky that I'm looking in, just to try to get away for a moment, you know? And you know, those things really do help. And you know, just clear your mind a little bit and just get away from everything for a second. I think that's very important to you know, anyone that has a ton of things going on.
Yeah, he even said like, it just takes 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes to get up, get out, do something different than whatever that you've been doing all day. That minimal still helps you retain your focus or gets you back into the right direction. Of course, he's a huge advocate of exercise. And, you know, I think what he says, he has a morning ritual where he doesn't turn anything on, no electronic equipment. He goes to his journal and just writes down whatever. I don't even know if he said he had his morning coffee with it. He just does this thing in the morning. I think yoga. I don't think he said he does yoga, meditation, maybe.
Probably meditation. Yeah. I think even just like, I think there's power to a 10-minute walk, right? Just getting out and moving and walking around. But I also think even if you can't do that, just that moment of breath and just kind of being in that moment of, I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to feel this breath. I'm going to breathe out. It just kind of resets your brain. It seems so simple, yet it really is powerful.
For sure. And I know myself, it's just amazing to me the difference of my day and how my day goes when I get up and get my workout in early in the morning around 6 o'clock versus when I don't. Right. If I wake up at 6:30 and miss my workout, I'm like, the whole day is jacked up. I just don't feel the same. And I don't know what it is about getting that just time to yourself, right? And not having to jump right into the mix of things that really helps, right? And gives you that clarity, that confidence to just knock out that day. But he's a lot more disciplined than me, because that journaling in the morning, man, I don't know if I could do that one. That's tough.
I'm right there with you. I'm like, have you seen my chicken scratch? Where I'll write something. It's like, I can't even reread what I wrote. So here's the other thing was, so someone had asked him, they're like, well, how do you actually achieve focus? How do you do it personally? And I kind of want to, we talk about things like you need capacity and you need community, you need curiosity, communication, all that, you know, those high, you know, words, but the rubber meets the road thing. He actually gave a couple examples, which I thought was great for him to share, because again, it may not work for everybody, but I just love the idea of him actually giving us something that we can just try once, right? It's something that's executable. So he says, as I mentioned before, change up positions. And then he said, listen to some focus music. So,
oh yes.
Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say, you know, for me, I actually love listening to classical music when I need to focus. I have it playing gently in the background, and it's pleasant enough to my ears where you can hear harmony, melody, and all that, but it's not so much that it draws my attention to the music.
Yes.
Does music work for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. It works for me. I think so how I have to focus though is I can have everything on in the background, and I have to tell I time block, and I say, this is, you know, for the next 30 minutes, this has to get done. And so that way I can, and I have apps that I can shut stuff off on my computer that I can't go to certain places, but this has to get done. So I know that I feel like I can do this in 30 minutes to an hour. And this is the only thing I'm going to be working on, and it has to be done before I get up. So yeah, I'll have music on and stuff, but I have to have a focus of what needs to get done in that time.
Okay, so you mentioned apps. He sounds like a tech gadget app happy person.
Mhm.
And I guess there are some tools out there that will be timers, notifications, and all that. I mean, I can see where that's helpful. I can also see that where that's distracting. I think he made a point of this is you got to be careful a little bit with those apps because you might get into a flow and then that app might screw you up a little bit on that. So Erin, do you say you use those types of apps and
Yeah,
stuff?
so I use, but so one I use all the time is called self-control. And so what you do is you say, hey, you cannot let me on these websites. So I tend to, when things get really hard, it's like I want this hit, right? I want to get out of it. I don't want to think. And so I'll go to certain websites just to, read the news for the 10th time or whatever, something stupid. So what I do is say for the next X amount of time, 4 hours, hour, whatever it is, you cannot allow me to go on these websites. So it's not distracting at all. It just stops. It will not let you go to certain places that you've
Gotcha.
set the parameters.
Okay, so it's not like an alarm, right? Like
No,
it's not,
no.
okay.
It's total, all about productivity.
Jonathan, do you have anything like that? Do you use any tools like that?
I'm a bit like Erin, as well as music. Kenny G, Pandora. People make fun of me, but I blast my Kenny G, and I'm in my zone when Kenny G comes on. Like, if you can know a saxophone by heart, I know them, right? But Kenny G, and then I tell myself this is my time for a deep focus and phone off, face down, and I just lock in. Period.
Yeah.
So until it's done, right? So. Yeah, so it's a blend of the two. And it's just really just making myself get after it for however long it takes to complete the task.
I find myself, and I didn't realize this, when I went to college, it was pre-mobile phone and pre a lot of internet even. But I remember I would force myself to go to the library and I would sit there. So I would be able to do my research, to write my papers and all that good stuff. And I think about that now, how I was able to accomplish and focus on that, because now I find myself holding this up every now and then, checking for no other reason other than, oh, hey, the weather changed or some random thing. It's stupid. But yeah, I've had to turn this off so many times and move it out of my vision.
Yes.
Do you think
that's it?
So do you think
Mm-hmm.
so? No, we're not native to this. Do you think the next generations are going to be the future? People are going to be as addicted, or is it because it's so new and shiny for us? We still think it's
I think they're more addicted than we are. Like,
Yes.
it's all about this validation. And honestly, you should, I think it's called Digital Minimalism. It's a great book. And I removed all these apps from my phone. And it was I needed my hit. And I was going to stupid apps I didn't even care about because I'm like, oh my, I need something. I need I need to see something. Like the regular apps I'd go to are no longer there. So I got to see. And you just realize you're in a restaurant. Like how many kids, you're in a restaurant by yourself and you're waiting for someone. You can't be you've got it. Okay, well, I'm going to go on my phone and see what's happening. And I think the younger generation is way worse about it because they can't even sit at a dinner table and have a conversation with their family, with people around them without being connected to their phone. So I think it's even going to be a bigger problem.
I agree.
So as always, I'm always over time. And I really need to get better on the time management here thing. I think that's one of his things on focus as well. But I get so excited. I want to keep talking. So, Jonathan, as always, such a pleasure to have you. So for those that want to get a hold of you, learn more about Noonish Podcast or In Group International, how can they get a hold of you?
In Group International, you can go to www.oneengine.com. For Noonish, you can find us on YouTube at Noonish, youtube.com/c/Noonish, Apple Podcasts, Noonish Live, Spotify, Noonish Live. We're on Instagram, Noonish Live, Facebook, Noonish. So we're all over the place. So if you just type in Noonish, Google search Noonish, we'll pop up. And got this nice little picture of El Grande Toto, Jonas Bull, and myself and Mark Clayton. And we're on every Wednesday at noon on YouTube Live. So come check us out. Please subscribe, like, share, do all that good stuff.
Ooh, absolutely. And Erin.
So yeah, all of this is part of the GLO Business Accelerator or Acceleration 2.0 series. So if you're interested, join us every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central. I know you'll have the queued up speaker, Syya, but we'd love to have you join us in the Dallas chapter as a premium member. We'll start meeting live here shortly. For this month, you can join forums for free if you join. So we'd love to have you, and head over to withglo.com to find out more.
Absolutely. And of course, if you're in the Dallas area, hit me and Erin up. We'd love to have you with us. And so for next week, we are going to have The 9 Habits of Extreme Productivity with Erica and Mike Schultz. They are a husband and wife team, and apparently, Erin, I think you and we're gonna have a fun conversation because it's a husband and wife team. And hearing productivity and husband and wife team always cracks me up because it's like, I mean, come on, let's be honest. There's got to be a lot of conversations and fun conversations with those two, I'm sure. So
I'll be taking notes. Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, for those that are interested in hitting up and understanding what a podcast is, Erin and I are happy to chat with you with Innovation Media Enterprises. That is what we do. We are the call us the easy button for all things podcasting for your business. And on that note, my friends, I think this is another great conversation. Thank you for joining us for the Afterglow live recap podcast. We will see ya next week, everyone. Take care.